Hello and welcome to the Muskies Coaches Corner. My name is Bryan Lidtke. I'm the Sports Information Graduate Assistant here at Lakeland, and today I'm joined by Brian Rushmer. He's the head coach of the Lakeland men's volleyball team. Brian, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure, dude.
First question. You, like all of our coaches and most of our staff at Lakeland and in Wisconsin, have been staying home during the COVID-19 pandemic. What have you been up to at home the last month or so while we've all been quarantined?
I mean, a little bit of everything at this point, to be honest. I spend normally so much of my time in the gym between Lakeland club and everything else that I'm doing everything except that. uh,
Right.
cleaning out things that needed to be cleaned out. Gotten back to a little bit of rereading The Inner Game of Tennis, which is one of my favorite books, and just kind of trying to stay busy at this point.
Yeah, not much else we can do. Next question. Along with our other sports teams in the spring, you guys are impacted by the spread of the coronavirus. Your season came to an early end, about weeks early, and you had your final four matches canceled for the season. What was that like, or how disappointing was it to see the season end early?
Um, I mean, obviously, extremely disappointing. There's no doubt about that. You talk about all these, senior days, that kind of thing. We only had one senior, but his senior day was stripped away from him. He's not planning on coming back next year, even though the NCAA has granted that extra year for people. But it's funny and cliched to think everybody has this all. You end a season in a manner in which that you don't want to, usually a loss then. You feel like you have unfinished business. I'm pretty sure everybody feels like after this year, we all have unfinished business.
Yeah, and at least you had a high note to end the season on. You guys ended up winning your last match of the year against Marian in 4 sets, a team both of us are quite familiar with. Uh, did you have any idea or something in the back of your mind that day that made you think this could be the last game of the season for us?
I mean, we had an idea that things were going to change soon, but we didn't really think that would be the last one. We actually pre-match. The officials gave us a chance to myself and Tyler choose whether or not to do normal pre-match and post-match protocol as far as handshakes and that kind of stuff. Because USA Volleyball had come out with something that day as far as, all right, we're going to no longer go through and shake everybody's hands. We're all going to step forward and wave, that kind of a concept.
Sure.
So Tyler and I decided, yeah, let's do it normal. It'll be our last normal match. And we're kind of joking around about it, thinking, okay, it won't be that big a deal. And it definitely was. And then even more so after the match, we were kind of talking in the hallway, myself, a couple of Lakeland players, a couple of the Marian players, and our staff and their staff, and Fond du Lac had just gotten the announcement of the 2 positive tests in the area within like that hour, basically. And Marian was supposed to go to St. Louis that weekend, and we were jokingly saying, well, I doubt you're going to be able to go to St. Louis. And sure enough, within the next 24, 48 hours, everything changed for everybody.
Yeah, that was just a completely surreal experience, I think, for all of us, not just at Marion and Lakeland and volleyball.
Well, there's no doubt about that.
So just looking back on the season now, this was your first season coaching the Muskies. Looking back on it, what are your thoughts on how the season went?
Um, I mean, I think it went well. I don't know that our record necessarily dictates that if you look at the numbers on it. We had an extremely tough schedule, but honestly, given how young we were, how much we competed within matches was impressive to me, and then even more so the fact that we were trending upward towards the end of the year, which I know was that much more of a disappointment to the guys when they weren't able to actually finish the year. We were playing our best volleyball, and that there was no doubt about that. So to be able to step in, it'd be the first year, not even be there for a calendar year yet, and be playing our best volleyball, then not be able to finish. I would say it went well. It could have gone better, and we're going to make sure that it goes better next year.
Sure, and that was one thing I was going to ask you about too, because this is a very young team compared to the teams that you assisted with at Marion, where you had the same core playing for all 4 years basically. How does that change the way that you coach your team and your expectations for how the team will perform?
Honestly, expectations I keep the same. So part of that is then okay, leveling off pre-match, post-match, during match. Are these expectations reasonable? And I think they were. And to be honest, with the younger guys, it just means you break it down a little bit more. So as far as skill development, how we wanted to teach things, some of our verbiage changed, that kind of thing from the year before for the guys that were returning. And then the new freshmen were new. So either way, things were going to change for them. So I think it was almost a little bit helpful that half the roster was freshmen.
Sure. Do you feel like you've started to put your stamp on the program a little bit after this first season?
I would say yes, but there's an asterisk because honestly, putting a stamp on a program within 1 year is extremely difficult, and then even harder when you're cut short like we were. We weren't able to finalize and finish, have closure to what we were trying to build, and the buy-in factor that the guys were steadily getting more and more into what I was trying to preach. I mean, I think over the next couple of years, it's going to be that much more prevalent what we're trying to do and what my quote unquote stamp would be on the program.
For sure. So building on that a little bit, what would you say are your ultimate goals or expectations for the volleyball program going forward?
For the volleyball program going forward, obviously we'd all like to win and have successful, on the court opportunities. But reality is success for us. I would love to get hot at the end of the year and make a conference tournament, see if we can make an NCAA tournament. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to measure all of our success on that.
Sure.
Seeing guys graduate, seeing the freshmen from this year through their next 4 years, seeing the guys that we have coming in next year through that their 4 years grow up and be contributors to society. That's something that as I get older, I weigh more on than I used to when I first started doing this in any way, shape, or form. Winning was a lot, and winning is still a lot. There's no doubt about it. But there are other things that measure success beyond it.
Definitely. So just going back into your coaching career prior to arriving at Lakeland this season, you were an assistant at Marian for the past 4 seasons, helping start the program there. Um, what are the main differences that you've discovered between being an assistant coach and then being a head coach at the Division III level?
Um, I mean, part of it, even just in general for the transition part for me, how well Tyler and I work together. The fact that I'd known him for many, many years before, and that we had coached high school together before and club together before, having him be the guy that I was doing it with at Marian was huge. We both basically worked on the same level as far as every skill and how we wanted to teach something. We worked off of each other and made sure that we we're both comfortable with what we were using as far as verbiage goes and how we were actually getting guys to do different things. The biggest change to me, more recruiting. There's no doubt about it. More recruiting for sure, and then paperwork. When you add the paperwork aspect in, Tyler did a lot of that, especially the first 3 years. That fourth year, I started to do a little bit more there, but paperwork, scheduling, that kind of thing. Scheduling to me was pretty simple, just from a standpoint I've done it for 13 years at Germantown.
Sure.
So that part was pretty much the same. It was just networking with different coaches at a collegiate level rather than a high school level. And then obviously working that within a budget. But honestly, the transition's been relatively simple. And then having Colin be my assistant coach and having someone I trust on the bench with me all year was another reason that it was a smooth transition for me.
Most definitely. And you and Colin both have ties to Germantown High School, where you've been the head coach there, and you made a number of appearances at the state level, and you broke through in 2018 and won the state title. So could you tell us a little bit about your success there in building and then maintaining that program?
Germantown's always going to be a special place in my heart. There's no doubt about that. Starting that program, we started from scratch. They had nothing in 2006, and I stumbled upon it with my former golf coach and English teacher from Tosa East was a associate principal there. So he said they were starting a program, and he helped me get the opportunity to start it there as far as being the coach goes. And we set a 5-year goal when we came in, and to ideally qualify for a state tournament in a 5th year. We did. Building that program, I tried to basically model it after the way John Simon built Tosa East. And John's been at Tosa East for, I want to say 30 plus years-ish now. And he basically built it by trying to get a couple of guys, play club, play year-round, and then you get athletes, usually basketball players, that can complement that. Especially the basketball players can use it then as training going into their basketball season. But year 5, we was really the first year of being really competitive, being that we lost in a state semifinal match to Marquette High School team that had 3 guys that went on to start in Division I, 2 programs, one of which won 2 national championships at Loyola as the starting setter. And we did it with only 1 player that had played club ever and 1 season of it. So we had a bunch of athletes that bought into what we were preaching in the gym and learned how to play volleyball. And that was really the start of the last 9 years, because counting that year, we've been in the state tournament 7 to 9 years. So moving on from that, like the breakthrough for 2018, that's a group that there's guys on that team that I'm sure I'll be connected with for the rest of my life, and hopefully stay involved with theirs. Just guys that had been on varsity for 3 years, 4 years for one of them. One guy had started for 3 years. Bryce Barrett was our first guy to go play Division I in college. And then you add just the commitment that you see from those guys that hadn't been as prevalent for ours as far as weight training and what they're doing outside of volleyball, with guys like Carter Schmidt and what he was able to transform his body into and be able to physically dominate guys. That's what showed officially in that 2018 season. And it's something that's going to be special for me going for many, many, many years.
For sure. And I'm definitely looking forward to seeing that continue here at Lakeland, because if we can go from qualifying into state in high school in 5 years, I'm expecting us to do really well in the conference now, and I have no doubt that you'll be able to get us there. So just yeah, definitely. A few more basic questions. When did your involvement in volleyball start, whether that be playing or coaching?
For me, I didn't really play organized volleyball honestly until high school.
Okay.
I got introduced to volleyball by a couple of neighbors around me, Joe Richard and Dan Hayes, that were my sister's age, so 4 years and 5 years older than me. So I looked up to them in general in the neighborhood, and they'd be out peppering in the yard and doing different things like that. So then when I went to high school, I was like, okay, I'll give it a shot. We'll see what happens. I grew up playing soccer, and I was kind of over all the running at that point. So
Don't blame you.
yeah. So volleyball seemed like a good opportunity, and I haven't looked back at this point. I started coaching then my junior year of high school, because my sophomore year we actually started a volleyball club. My dad and I started a Raider VBC at the time, so that we would have our JV team playing a club season together, because half those guys weren't going to play club unless we made something affordable and reasonable schedule that would work around basketball and other sports, so that we could continue to have multi-sport athletes. And then the second year of that, we added a team for my cousin's age group that was 2 years younger. So I started coaching that with my cousin, or my uncle. So I coached that team for their 15s through their 18s year. And that's how I started coaching.
Gotcha. When you're not coaching, what are some of your hobbies?
A big fan of golf. There's no doubt about that. I'm happy that I'll be able to golf soon.
Right? Yeah. I think all of us are happy we can have something that we can go outside and keep on doing.
There's no doubt about that. I like to hang out with friends, as everybody does in that sense. But being outdoors is great. In the summer, if I can, in between camps, normally it's really hard to do, but we'll see what happens this year. I have an inflatable paddleboard because I can't fit a normal paddleboard in my car. So I try to use that as much as I can, get out on the water, try to be able to relax a little bit, still get a little bit of a workout in with it.
Sure.
But yeah, just stay as active as I can.
Definitely. I know we've talked about this in some of our pre-match conversations before, but what's your favorite type of music or your favorite musical artist or band?
I hope Colin watches this and wonders if I say Grateful Dead.
That's what I was going for.
I like a lot of music, so that's a really hard question for me. I grew up playing guitar and bass guitar, and like dabbled in drums as well. So me playing music is something that's important to me still, and I've gotten to actually do that a little bit more now with the free time. But top favorite bands, I would say I like classic rock, and then like jam bands, that kind of thing, like a Fish or Led Zeppelin. I am a Grateful Dead fan. that is a thing too. But music that has texture, so like Steely Dan, things that have a lot of layers to them. Prog rock, that kind of a thing, is something that I've always been interested in.
Sure. And then a last fun question for you. With The Last Dance airing as kind of our premier sporting event right now, who is the best NBA player of all time?
Oh, Best NBA player of all time. Oh, that's a tough one.
Right?
Best NBA player of all time. I'm gonna go back. I'm not gonna go with Jordan. I'm gonna go with formerly Lou Alcindor or Alcindor, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Very good pick. He's one that's definitely underrated. And I saw Colin Cowherd tweeted today about his top 5 NBA players, and he didn't have Kareem in there at all. And I'm like, he's one of the most dominating players in league history. So I don't know how he doesn't make a top 5 even. So I definitely respect that choice.
And just from a guy that changed the game. Everybody's going to say Jordan, everybody's going to say LeBron or Kobe, but
Yeah.
you look past the recent years and try to eliminate the fact of the game is different now and look to what changed it. And he's one of the guys that helped change it. There's no doubt about that.
Sure. Exactly. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Brian. It's been a pleasure to catch up with you.
Absolutely, Brian. Always good to talk, dude.